So I recently beat Life is Strange Double Exposure. Honestly, I beat this in like 3 days. It came out last Tuesday. But I'm a big fan of this franchise. It's what we've named our show after. This page, Life is Strange, Life is Storytelling, as you can see the correlation there. But we have Max back. It's a big entry. It's a big thing to have her back, and let's talk about it. Before we get into the story or anything from a technical perspective, this game is gorgeous. It is the most beautiful game we've gotten from Deck 9 here. It is beautiful. Now, unfortunately, performance-wise, was not always the best. There was definitely some audio issues where different characters had different levels of volume. I did find a way around that by just wearing my headset. It seemed to work fine there. Didn't have the issue there, but just coming through my TV sounded odd. And then also, when you were in like menus, it would act as if your controller has drift and go through all the options repeatedly over and over again. It would stop after a little bit, but it was really frustrating, especially when you're trying to like read journal entries, which is very important to this game, because Max has a lot listed in her journal from Arcadia Bay going into this, and it just made that a bit rough. But I had to mention that here because it did impede my enjoyment of the game a bit. But of course, big thing here, Arcadia Bay. I do need to preface this with, I made the choice to sacrifice Chloe. Not easily. I love her. She's my girl. And every time I've gone through the game and made that choice, I cry. I absolutely weep. So that is the choice I had carry over to this. And I will say, I think they honored my choice. From my understanding, from other players, what the direction they went with, if you sacrificed Arcadia Bay and kept Chloe, like saved her, that option didn't sound great. There's essentially a breakup of sorts between you and her. I don't know the specifics for how that all goes down, and yeah, doesn't sound like there's a whole lot in that field, which is unfortunate, because with a game franchise like this that's so centered around choice, and your choice specifically, it really should focus on those, especially like it's like the biggest choice of this franchise when you beat that first game. But like I said, I felt like my choice was honored, and honestly, I'm really happy with the way they handled it in regards to the way I went with it. Because Chloe is definitely at the forefront of this game, at least in Max's mind. I was talking about that journal a minute ago. She has a journal that she notates in with all of her big events in her life, like when she's traveling for work, any big life events or anything. And when you read through her journal, she's writing her journal entries to Chloe. So Chloe is definitely present in the mind of Max, in the life of Max, and it's beautiful. And there is, of course, as you know, tragedy strikes, and we have Max losing another close friend here at the beginning of this game, which is the setup, is not a spoiler there, with Safi. And literally, I was like, is she going to have an entry reflecting this? And the first entry from when this happens literally says, "Oh no, not again." And there's some beautiful tragic art drawn on the page, but I am very happy to report they definitely respect at least your choice if you sacrifice Chloe. Very unfortunate they don't go about it the other way. And let's talk about Max herself. She has her new friends, Safi and Moses here. I do think they are both great. Safi, of course, is where the tragedy strikes, and we have to investigate her murder and everything, going between the two timelines and whatnot. And yeah, that whole mechanic is fine. It's not really as in-depth as they made it seem like it would be. But I do want to give a huge shout out to Moses, because he's not a huge part of like the overall plot, but dude is there, and he is going through it, and there you have some really beautiful moments with him, and I just found him really endearing, and I just wanted to give him a big old hug. But Max is still Max. Max still loves to take pictures. It's a huge part of her whole job here at the university. And of course, a huge part of the gameplay as well, as you'll be taking pictures pretty regularly. But I'm so happy with the way they handled Max. I think she had a really good arc in this game. As you know, in the first game, there's the whole thing of like, after the Max and Chloe drama, she stopped talking to her. She just cut her out, didn't text Chloe back or talk to her for so long until she moved back. And you find out in Double Exposure, she still is distancing herself from a lot of things that remind her of Arcadia Bay. And when we get to the end of this game, it does have a sort of closure to that, where she says, I'm not going to run anymore. I'm not going anywhere. And you see that character growth. And I love it. I love that character growth for Max specifically, because she's such a great character. She's one of my favorite characters in all fiction, and I love her so much. So my biggest negative of the game is two things. One, choices are such a pivotal point of this franchise. They're so important to this franchise. And like I was already saying, it sounds like there's one choice not being respected for the Chloe story. Before you even really start this game, the choices in this game really don't carry much weight, and they really kind of don't matter. Because especially the final choice at the end, which should be like your biggest choice, as you would do at the end of the game, it doesn't impact the ending. I've seen both endings depending on the choices, and yeah, it doesn't really matter. And then the choices that you have going throughout, with the like your side characters and whatnot, as you get to know them and their drama, some really cool things start being like manifested and being put forward, but they kind of don't go anywhere. And some things get lost in some convolution between like what ends up being the bad guys. It's essentially like somebody with a bunch of hats just regularly changing it to be like, oh, this is the bad guy. This is the bad guy. No, this is the bad guy. And it just didn't work for me. Kind of got lost in the sauce there. So my main positives are Max's arc and the fact that they did such a service to making Arcadia Bay and that whole tragedy a part of her core character. And that is, again, referring to my choice with sacrificing Chloe and how that felt respected. But then the other thing I have an issue with here is the ending. Because the ending here, it really, instead of focusing on like tying up this story in any way, it just kind of focuses more on setup for what would be the next game. And this franchise has never really done that. It's never really been about that. And there is like an MCU-ness about it that I am not a fan of. I'm not looking forward to it really, but I mean, I'm going to be here to see where it goes, but it just doesn't seem like the franchise we know and love. But I really wish this could have been just a solid one-off entry, like a hello and then a final goodbye to Max, because I feel like they left her at a good spot here. But it looks like we're going to be getting more, and I'm curious to see what we're going to get. But overall, from my enjoyment and my time with this game, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. If y'all have played it, let me know what you think.